Mother Nature must have been a cowboy. You can see it everywhere you go, from the belly-deep grass to the flatlands to the mountains of timber and snow. Who else would have thought to make water and grass and all the things that a cow needs to eat, and then turn around and give them all back in the forms of milk and meat? Who else but a cowboy would have a good laugh and develop a sheep or a hog, and then put the smarts of 3 good men in the brain of a scruffy old dog? Just look at a horse and tell me the truth if you don't see a cowboy's hands, from the shape of his head and the strength of his back and the confident way that he stands. Who else but a cowboy would have thought about rain to make the land fertile and green, then gather the excess and take it away in the rocky bed of a stream? I guess it's just a prejudiced view of the things in the world I see, but if Mother Nature wasn't a cowboy, you sure couldn't prove it to me.
We bought the ranch in 1942, moved on the ranch in latter part of 1943, and my husband was still in Nevada during the war, and then finally he was able to get away early in 1945, and then he came to the ranch. He was just coming back and forth. And in 1944, one time he came over and there come trucks in on that ranch and all kinds of confusion. What in the world's going on? And here he had bought 24 of purebred Hereford cattle and a bull from the Stead Ranch in Nevada. Is this all right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then as time went by, we bought a few more. And my husband did dirt work. He had the cat, and it was all that kind of work, and brushing and clearing, and reservoirs and roads and house pads and all kinds of things that you can do with a good-sized cat. And the family, as they grew up, were milking the cows. We had a couple of milk cows. They will, all of them, Jerry and Judy and Frank and Earl, milk cows, because that was ranch life there then, and money was short in those days, and we did everything that we could to supply food for the family. I had a garden and a can, and we had chickens and we had ducks, and we had a few turkeys when it come holiday time. And
we had sheep for a while too.
We had sheep for quite a long while, but that was later after children all left, and as you remember, they were not there.
I bought my first project lambs from you.
Yeah, you did. That's true. And there was fun times too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the kids. He was my very favorite kid. So, I'm talking about Darryl when I say favorite kid. I want a name in here so I know who I'm talking about. And it was, the kids would come home if they could, and would do when it was branding and marking time, and moving cattle from one place to the other. We made hay on the ranch for a couple, 3 or 4 years, and then it just wasn't enough, so of course we had to buy hay then too. Everybody had to buy hay, there seemed like there in the valley, except the Red House Ranch. They didn't have to. But anyway, then as time went by, my oldest son left and went to Goleta, that's out of Santa Barbara. They studied in Sacramento first to become a highway patrol officer, and was there for 11 years with that, and then he had an injury and he had to quit. They wouldn't let him work that anymore, and then he went into the business of boat repairs and stuff like that, and worked that for about 8 or 10 years. Then he turned it over to his son, and then it wasn't too long after that, boy, he moved to Calaveras County, back home. And right now he has a shop that is just mechanicking, fixing boat motors and whatever else that needs to be fixed. He's a mechanic, they say, an A #1. I think he is. He's good. And he's 60 years, 61 years, 60 years old, be 61 before too awful long. And he's going to retire from that, and then he's going to have fun. He's going to travel. He's also a pilot. He's flown everywhere, and was doing just fine with that. And his son now is up into 30s, and he is a professional boat racer, racing boats. And he is top-notch now. He's gotten so that he can... He and his dad worked on the motor of those boats that he has to race, and till it's just tops. And he win. Last 3 years, he's been winning every race all over the country, from Northern California to the very Southern California and out of state too. And
do you have any cattle anymore? Or?
I just recently sold them and leased the ranch to the man that bought the cattle. And it's a blessing because I don't have to worry about them anymore. I worked with cattle. As a matter of fact, I worked with cattle when I was just a kid going to high school. I'd go out to the ranches and they'd saddle up a horse for me, and I'd bring the cattle in off of the mountains and stuff like that. And in Nevada, when I was just a little girl out of Minden, my father had cattle, and he put us on horses when I was 4 years old when I was the first riding a horse and riding behind the cows and in the dust and hacking and and crying, which was funny, kind of, you know. Yeah. But didn't have sense enough to put something over my face, and my dad never told me either. So, but anyway, then.
Remember anything funny, particular that happened, or that stands out in your mind from years by, or as kids, or anything like that might have happened?
Oh yes, there were a number of things, but the one that was the funniest, my husband laughed so hard that he hung onto the fence post and just laughing so hard he couldn't stand him, and he slid right down the post. It was Frank was trying to get Judy close enough to the watering trough to push her in. Well, she kept getting away, and Frank was sitting on the edge of the watering trough, and he forgot Jerry, and Jerry sneaked in behind him, and she pushed him right into that watering trough. And my husband laughed, like I say, he laughed so hard, and all of us were laughing, and Frankie was so mad. Oh, he was so mad at his sister. He was, of course, he was a heavy-set kid, and he couldn't get out very easily, trying to get out without putting his feet into the water, getting his boots all wet. But anyway, that was quite a time. And my husband finally had to go over there and pull him out. I couldn't do it. I was laughing so hard, and Horace was laughing. You can hear him over the valley. He laughed, had such a hearty laugh. But that was the most funny thing that I can remember on the ranch, was that. And I never had to whip my girls except once in a great while. I think I whipped Jerry 3 times, and Judy maybe about 6, because she was stubborn. And I used to send them out. This what made them mad. Send them out with a pair of scissors to go out and cut the new shoots from the quince trees. Boy, they were strong and sharp, and boy, they just danced when you switch your legs with it. That's all it took. That's about all I can think about them. But the girls and my sons, they all worked on the ranch and did a good job. Frank went out with Horace a lot, and Earl worked on the cat for a little while, and then he went to as I say, he went to found his love. Great love, and she's a wonderful woman to this day. I idolize my daughter-in-law, and they had a nice family and everything. But anyhow, their marriage is sound as a rock. And Frankie, he's fly by night, and but he's a good man. He's a wonderful equipment operator. He can take him apart and put them back together, and he's a wonderful operator. And now he's head boss for Tigert Construction Company, and he's up for a good promotion, which is fine. He told me this here a couple of weeks ago. And Jerry, my oldest daughter, worked hard and went to work for Angel Sheet Metal, and then Bob Eastman was going to retire, so she bought the shop, and she's doing wonderfully well now. She has a lot of trucks and does all kinds of different things, heating and building and everything. She did an enormous lot of work out there, fancy stuff, iron work and all metal, you know, of course. And I
know Angel Sheet Metal does a lot for the fairgrounds. Yeah.
Yes, and then at that new golf course out there, out of Angels, what is it? Can't think of the name of it now, but anyway, it's a new one right just out of Angels on the old road. And they did all kinds of work there. And she does all the heatings, and old senior citizens will call her and say, Jerry, they all know her by her first name. They say, Jerry, my heater's not working, or I can't get it to work. Okay, I'll send a man out. And that's many, many times during the winter. There's seniors that don't know what to do. They don't know how to work them. They go out on them. They can't light them. And So Jerry has one man that'll just go out and take care of all these people that have problems in the wintertime. And they all like her. She has 15 employees, and they're good men, and they do what she wants them to do. When she tells them something, they believe her. She doesn't have to repeat it. So I think that's wonderful. And now the youngest daughter has 2 children, lives in Thousand Oaks, and they have a business that's pest control. And they have, it kept working up the business, and till they have 2 offices, 2 places, and they have 18 trucks and a business that won't quit. And they're right down in the area where it's the best place in the world. Movie stars down at Canal Valley and all of that. And boy, they have a business that won't quit. And they decided that they would buy some houses. They bought a couple of houses and they have these as rentals. So they're doing wonderfully well too. And I am a very happy person as far as my children are concerned. You get ticked at them once in a while, but that's all right. They get mad at me too, so it's all right too. Then it was very sad. My husband passed away 8 years ago last September, and that's hard to take.
Yeah.
Anything like that is very hard to take, but we're all doing fine, and my kids help me all the time, and everything is great. But now I am free to travel a little bit. In June, I'm going to Montana and visit a very dear old friend. She's 92, and I hope she's not well, and I want to see her, and that's in July we're going to go. And a lady friend's going to drive with me, and we're going to just putt all the way up there all by ourselves.
That's great.
And have some fun.
Yeah.
She's never visited Montana, and I've gone up many times hunting, and hunting was my husband and my sport when he was well yet, so. Anyhow, and we always did well. We had a lot of fun. We had a cabin to go to right on the Madison River, catch fish and freeze to death, come in and warm our hands. But it was fun. Everything like that was fun. We liked to do it. So.
Where'd you grow up, John?
Where did I grow up? Gee, I was born in Stockton, but I grew up in San Andreas and lived there till World War II, and since World War II have lived at Valley Springs.
I remember you telling a story about catching a milk cow for somebody when you were a kid. You had your first job was getting somebody's milk cows in.
Yes, that was an elderly man named Clarence Getchell in San Andreas. In fact, he was the editor of the Calaveras Prospect back around the turn of the century or so, and he lived right about close to where the Metropolitan is, just across the street from there. But he had a barn over on Pope Street about a half a mile to the east, and then he had a pasture down where the student parking lot is at Calaveras High School. And every day he had to have 3 milk cows moved from the barn past his home and down to the pasture at near the high school. And the amazing thing was, some times of the year there was no water in that pasture, so we had to water the cows as they walked past his home, and had a hose running into a wash tub, and these 3 cows had to get their fill of water in the morning when they went down to the pasture, and then again in the afternoon as they came home, and I took them over to the barn, and he milked them night and morning, and yeah, that was my first job. I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I got 10 cents a day, and boy, I thought, that's real money.
That was good money in those days.
Yeah.
So you still have a mountain range, I guess. You take your cattle to the mountains.
Yes, we do, but we're thinking very seriously of giving up the mountain range, the problem being that the environmentalists and government regulations are getting so stringent that it's almost prohibitive to run cattle on the public lands anymore.
And your daughter and son-in-law pretty much take care of most of the cattle now, or?
Well, yes. I have
quite a bit.
2 daughters and 2 son-in-laws, and each of them and I have a 50 cow permit in the mountains, and we've thought the range was awfully good, you know, during those years in the 80s when calves were worth 80, 90 cents or $1 a pound. We could get gains of close to 200 pounds on our calves in 3 months in the summer, and it really paid off. But today, with calves worth about 50, 60 cents a pound, there isn't much margin in it. So we're thinking very seriously of giving up our range. I'm 75 years old, and there's quite a bit of work to maintaining the range. It's at about the 7,500 to 8,000 foot elevation, and we've got 11 miles of fence that we have to put up and take down each year, lay it on the ground so the snow doesn't...
And nobody helps you do it but you guys.
Well, we've been able to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
No, the Forest Service doesn't give you any help. The permittee is responsible for the fences and other improvements on the range, and you know, you hear how the cattle industry is being subsidized by the government running on public lands, because the annual animal unit month that the Forest Service and BLM charges is maybe only a little over $2 a month. And maybe you'd have to pay $10, $12, $15 a month for foothill range. But that $2 is just the first cost you have. We have to transport these cattle 90 miles from Valley Springs up onto the range, and it costs us about $10 a head each way. We can send about 30, 31, 32 pairs on a truck, and a truck costs a little over $300 to make the trip. So we've got a $20 transportation bill on the cattle, and if you divide that by 3, why, that's almost $7 a month in addition to that $2, plus the fact that we have to put a lot of labor in on the range, on the fences, and we have to move the cattle about every 3 weeks, and there's other expenses. In other words, I don't think we're getting any free ride using the public lands.
And everybody has a full-time job, so you can't just stay up there with them. You got to drive back and forth, and that costs money. And...
Well, between the 3 of us, we usually tried to keep somebody there most of the time because, gee, if cattle get out on the highway or something, Highway 108 is on the edge of our range, and if you ever travel 108, you know, the vehicles travel about 60 miles an hour, and it was very dangerous to ever have cattle get out. So we watch the cattle quite closely, and we've never had any problems, but we could have if we didn't manage it properly.
I know you had purebred cattle for a long time. Do you still have the purebred cows too? Or?
Well, in 1946, I bought my first registered Hereford cows, and I ran them till about 85, and then I sold about half of them to each of the 2 daughters and son-in-laws, and I've got about 25 cows left, about half Longhorns and half Herefords, and we did very well with our purebred cattle. We reached the place where we had a sale every year, a bull sale, sold about 40 to 50 2-year-old bulls, and we had a lot of repeat customers. People liked the bulls and liked the way we raised them, and we did okay, but you know, conditions change. What's amazing to me is that when I went into the cattle business, Herefords were the predominant breed. Everybody wanted white-faced cattle, but today there's probably 8 or 10 times as many Angus cattle in the country as there are Herefords, and I don't quite understand why, because I think Herefords were very satisfactory, and but fads change. You know, it's, some of it's fads, and there's a lot of what they call continental cattle, cattle that come from Europe, Charolais, Limousin, Chianina, and everybody wants to try something new when it's available. And
everybody's got their idea how to make money, I guess.
Everybody's willing to try something new.
Was your father in the cow business too, or?
Oh yeah, I'm the third generation. My grandfather lived at Murphy's and had cattle, and my father bought his first cattle about 1919, and by that time he was an attorney, lived in San Andreas, and bought Winter Range down in the Central Hill area between San Andreas, Toyon, and McCallamy Hill, and he had cattle for about 25 years when he sold out to my sister Agnes Radjo and I about 1944, 45, and my first recollection of the cattle business was when he used to go to Poscarel, which is a cattle range between the north and middle forks of the Stanislaus River at about the 6,000 to 7,000 foot elevation, and he would, even though he was an attorney, he took care of his cattle up there mostly, and he'd leave San Andreas maybe about noon on a Friday and drive to Big Meadows, which is about a 3 or 4 hour trip, then drive down a real narrow, twisty road to Sand Flats down on the North Fork of the Stanislaus, and then it was a 5-mile walk or horseback trip into the camp. There was no road in there at that time, and I think I was about 6 years old the first time I went in there, and then for about 10 years going in and out of the camp, everything had to be packed in on horseback. That's what this pack saddle and pack bags was used for, but it was amazing how my father and he had people working for him, and he did have some partners on the range sometime, and gee, they packed lumber, you know, like 8 feet long, and they packed barbed wire, coils of barbed wire. A good horse could carry 3 80-pound rolls of barbed wire, one on each side and one in the center of the pack saddle. They packed hay sometime, baled hay, you know, and that's kind of a chore. And he used to have a partner on the range named Fred Schwerer from Murphy's, who was the father of the longtime superintendent of schools named Charlie Schwerer. And as a kid, I can remember Fred Schwerer used to cut hay. They used to plant timothy and irrigate it, and he would cut the hay with a scythe on maybe 4 or 5 acres of ground and stack it with a pitchfork by hand, and he had a one-horse sled that he would drag the sled, put the hay on the sled, drag the sled up to a little log barn that was there, and they would have hay to feed their horses in the fall when they were rounding up cattle. And eventually that little Timothy meadow grew up with trees so bad that there was no more hay grown, so they had to pack baled hay. It probably came from the valley, was hauled to Sand Flats, then put on horses and packed into the camp. And I can remember how itchy that hay was as you'd lift it up and put it on the pack saddle, how the chaff would go down your collar and itch.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you have other interests on the ranch there. You diversified some. You have a mineral deal that you...
Yeah, along about 1948, the Pacific Clay Company, they were a sewer pipe making outfit that had a plant in Stockton, came up and told us we had clay on our ranch, and they had a long-time contract, for about 35 years. They mined clay on our ranch, hauled it to Stockton, made sewer pipe and the like. It looks like a big deal, but they paid us 10 cents a ton, and they gave us a $200 a year minimum royalty. Thought they could build that up to where we'd make some more money, but I don't think over the years we ever got more than $300 or $400 out of them. And then a few years ago, rockhounds, that's people, lapidarius, people who polish stones, told us we had a deposit of Valley Springs moss agate on the ranch, and they would like to go in and collect stones. I remember one Sunday morning I was still asleep, maybe about 8 o'clock in the morning, and a knock came on our front door, and I answered the door, and it was a man. He said he was from Camel, near San Jose, and that he had about 20 people an hour or so behind him who had planned to come to Valley Springs to collect moss agate, and that the place where they were expected to go, they were not able to go, and he understood that we had some of the same material, and would it be possible for them to go in on the ranch. And as he was talking, I was thinking how I was going to tell him no, that I really thought that anybody on the ranch might make a big mess, and then there was liability, and there probably wasn't very much in it, but he assured me as the field trip leader he would clean up after his people went out, and that they carried their own liability insurance, and that they'd be willing to pay us, gee, it seems to me $3 or $4 a person for the people that collected. And to make a long story short, when he came out that afternoon, he gave me about $90 in cash. Gee, that was the easiest money I ever made. And so we've kind of developed this rockhound business to where we have an annual rockhound powwow. In fact, it's going to be held on May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th each year, and about 200 dealers come to the ranch, set up their tailgating spaces on a 15 by 30 space each, and sell primarily polished rock jewelry, rough rock, polishing equipment, and the like to the people who come. The admittance is free for the public, and we think maybe as many as 10,000 people show up there in about 3 days. Sometimes we get terribly impacted on the parking and other such things, especially if it rains, which
did last year.
I don't think that's going to happen this year.
No.
But no, that's grown into quite a thing, and the community's gotten behind it. The Lions Club serves the food and refreshments, and several other community organizations take part and participate and profit by it. And the merchants in Valley Springs tell us that that's one of their best weekends, when these rockhounds and the public come to the powwow. So we think that's what's good for us is also good for the community, or maybe I should say what's good for the community is good for us. And so we try to be civic-minded and make Valley Springs a better place to live.
You got any funny or interesting recollections from years back with the cattle or stories? I know you got a ton of stories.
Oh, I don't know. Gee, like I say, the family's been in the cattle business since about the 1850s, and we've seen about everything that can happen in the cattle business. We've had good years and bad years, and in about the 51 years or so that I've been in business, we've taken the ups and downs. It seems to me there's been more downs than ups, but we've managed to operate the ranch and hang on to it and get a couple of our children interested in it. And so now I lease about half the ranch each to 2 daughters and 2 son-in-laws, and I just try to maintain fences, buildings, deal with the public. You can't believe how the rules bureaucratically, you have to deal with the planning commission and the planning department and the building department, and gee, you can't believe how the clean air people, I guess there are environmental agencies in San Andreas at the county courthouse, how much problems, it seems like problems to us, because 50 years ago you never had to worry about those things, but now if you want to mine clay or haul clay or burn some brush or anything else, you've got to go through officialdom and hopefully get permission.
You ever go driving down the road and watch the grass go whizzing by and think that inside the fence looks freshly mowed because the outside's twice as high? The answer is fairly simple, though. Most likely there's cattle on the graze, and pretty soon the grass will grow. Just give it a couple of days. Though it may never appear to grow as much as the grass on the outside of the fence, the cattle give it a gardener's touch that causes grass to grow twice as dense. So instead of just one measly crop like the tall grass that you see, the short grass in the pasture will probably grow 2 or 3 and provide our friends and neighbors with the goodness of milk and meat and leather goods and other stuff that make our lives so complete.
Well, do you ever have any milk cows, Nat?
Yeah.
Did you milk a few of them? Or?
Years ago, every cow that calved, my dad put them in, he'd milk them for a while. And them times you could turn them out on the road, and there'd be 5 or 6 cows that'd go up the road, and then they'd always come back. And we always had a milk cow.
Yeah.
So I milked a cow till not too many years ago, till the kids got big enough, and then we didn't use that much milk, and we didn't use. So was that?
What kind of? Were they any special breed or anything, or just?
Well,
or just
at last,
kind of
yes,
the cows
I had a Jersey, and then another. I bought a Jersey cow from over there at Paloma. Charlie, what the devil was his name? He's a carpenter. I don't think.
Yeah. No, that guy's name
The cow was out there as you go out the ridge where, what was his name?
Out to Ludwig's there?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was in the barn out there.
Yeah.
That's where we picked that cow up.
Oh.
And that's what we named her Paloma. So I also had a milk cow. We always milked a cow for our own use.
Yeah.
Well, years ago, my dad used to milk them, and then he'd put the milk in cans. He'd take it to Valley Springs.
Oh.
Years ago, it was a horse and wagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do remember another thing. Years and years ago, my dad and some of the other neighbors drove cows to Angels Camp and put them on the railroad, the Sierra Railroad.
Oh, okay. And where'd they go from there?
Sonora.
Oh, they went to Sonora.
Across through Sonora, the Sierra Railroad went across. There's a replica of that in the museum here in Angels that Dr. Virgil Arola made up.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Of the Sierra Railroad, where it come across from Sonora across over.
Oh, I'll be darned. Oh, I remember my dad talking about them. Well, he didn't know them. I guess he was, from hearing from other guys, the Fellmans that lived over there. Is they'd drive the cattle down to Milton and
well, then
put them on the rail car.
One time, I remember they drove them to Valley Springs.
Oh.
The train used to come in.
Come in there, yeah.
I picked them up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you, when's the last time you raised some hay, Nat? Did you cut any hay that you didn't, of course you couldn't get any this year, I guess, but
3 years ago or more.
Yeah.
Cut grass hay.
Yeah.
Well, Dad years ago, he used to raise some little grain. We had chickens, and he'd put in some wheat, and then he'd raise little oats. But and that's when I said he used to thrash the grain with the horses. And I wish I had the pictures of that. They had 4 horses, and they'd just go round and round and round like that. And then you'd throw this top straw off and stir it up, and then he'd go around and round, and then we had the fanning mill. You have to turn it by hand.
Yeah.
And he'd throw it in, and then there was screens in there, and then the grain would go on down too. When it's clean, it'd go out through a little trough on the side into a sack.
Yeah.
So you have to turn that by hand. I haven't got pictures of them.
Oh.
I wish I had the pictures of them. But them days we never had money to buy cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. How many ton a day could you do like that? Do a couple ton a day, or?
Oh no, I don't think not that much. I don't know.
How many sacks do you think you get?
What?
How many sacks would you get off of the grain you raised?
Oh, 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Of course, we had chickens, and we raised that for the chickens. But in recent years, market getting so you sow the grain, and you don't know whether you're ever going to get anything.
Yeah.
By springtime, you don't get any rain.
Yeah.
Or after you cut it, it rains and destroys all. But I don't know. I understand they're cutting hay now down below.
Oh yeah.
Valley.
Yeah, they have.
Hay, baling hay.
Yeah, they have been for about the last 3 weeks.
It must be time to rain again.
Yeah, it must be. I thought sure we were going to get some here. I went down there a few days ago, and there was all kinds of hay down. And, I thought sure we'd get some rain.
I wonder what the price is going to be.
Oh, it's going to be high. I don't know. I heard from.
When the Ag Alert, they had some in there was $150, $160.
Yeah.
But it was hay that was in the barn.
Yeah.
To come out of the barn. Yeah. But if they get a good crop.
Yeah, if they get a good crop, it might not be so bad.
A lot of hay come out of Nevada.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the price will come down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, I don't know what they're going to do with the cows this year.
Oh, I don't know.
God.
I don't know.
Look over there.
I know. There's nothing there.
Rain won't do that.
Won't do it any good.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you used to take your cows up to the mountains?
Well, Dad took cows in Pumpkin Valley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Years and years ago.
Yeah.
And I went up a couple times with him when I was still in grammar school. And he could take about 65 head on the Pumpkin Valley Range at that time. And so, of course, when he brought the cows back, that was in October, because I was going to school. So I only went up a couple of years when he went up. And when I went to high school, I started working in Tweet's store. I worked there when I went to high school, 4 years. 6:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night.
School in between times, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
No, you look back at the old times, like, I always want to go back up Pumpkin Valley, but, just to take the family up there. And
yeah.
I haven't got any pictures there. At that time, there was there was 2 log cabins and the old log barn. And then I think everything fell down. Right in back of the old cabin, the last cabin there, in the meadow, there's a spring. And you can't take a cup of that water and drink it, it's so cold. Boy, it just freezes your mouth,
Yeah.
But now I don't think you're supposed to drink any water out of the springs.
Well, they say you're supposed to be careful anyway,
But boy, that water was really cold.
Yeah, it's not near as bad if it's if it's running if it's running good, you don't have.
Yeah, well,
but you got to be careful, you know.
Well, you never know what happens.
You never
in the
know
mountains. You know, the mountains you could even at home, like when your kids run around in the springtime, drink a little stream running down off the hill. We'd drink water out there, drink water out of the creek. Now you don't.
No.
So there, stick your hand.
We used to drink out of the. Well, when I was in grammar school there in Moke Hill, you know, they still had the open ditch most of the way down, you know, there, and we used to drink out of the ditch.
Well, we always did then.
You know,
boy, now.
It probably wasn't a real smart thing to do even then, but.
There's so many houses all over.
They're all over. Yeah.
You know, like years ago, we used to have, you remember when we used to do a control burning?
Oh, yeah.
We used to have, well, there was, I don't know, the ranchers, you put in your lines and the forestry approved them and they'd send out a fire truck or two, whatever they thought you needed. So that went on for a couple of years. And then Johnny Jackson says, well, we can't send out any fire trucks anymore because the city's hollering because we pay for fire suppression and we don't want to see them out burning your places off. So we continued burning, and if we needed a fire truck, we'd call one out.
Yeah.
Well, we used to burn maybe 10,000 acres a year. But then they got so many, continued for about, 5, 6 more years. And then they got so many houses scattered around the brush you couldn't afford the insurance.
Yeah.
We burned quite a few, about 2, 3, or 4 times out to Gus's.
Yeah.
We had some good burns out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But boy, that country, Murray Cook country, needs
I could use it again.
Good fire up through there.
It's something else.
No, hollering about save the oaks, save the oaks. Did you get a brochure from, well, it came from, I guess it come out of Jerry's office. Jerry gets stuck with all them things.
I didn't.
Telling you how to take care of your
Take care of the oak trees, yeah. I didn't get it yet. At least if I did get it, I didn't see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you see some of those old pictures, like even over here, you know, like you see some of those at Angel's Camp that's taken up on top of the other ridge, you know, it's coming down this way, you know. Some of those old ones. And there's not a tree on these hills. There's not one tree over there, you know. And you go look at it now, and I think there's more oaks and stuff now than there was then in most places. I mean, in a lot of areas up here.
Out home on the ranch, Grant Gitchell's, I guess he'd be 150 now. He passed away, he was 96 years old. And he said he was born in the forks of the Michael Road and the Mountain Ranch Road. He said there was a sawmill there. He was born there. And he says, when I was a kid, he says there was no brush in your area. It was all timber.
I'll be darned.
And they cut a lot of it for the mines, and a lot of it burnt and killed it, and then the brush come. But if you know, like out home, I can take you out there in places where the little pine trees are coming up again. But as they grow higher, then they crowd out those others. But it nature takes nature a long time to do them things.
Yeah.
But the way
started in the mountains in 35, and then I went in the Army in 42 and got out in the last end of 45. And I wasn't going to the mountains again. And then Buster Wooster talked me into looking after his cattle around Camp Connell and Dorrington and wherever there were trouble spots. Now, in the early days, at Calaveras, big trees, they had some World War II veterans. I think put a rail fence around a lot of that country and put cattle guards on the highway. But well, that was in 35.
and my job was I was supposed to be down to the big trees to get those cattle that drifted in out of there by 8 o'clock in the morning, and then keep the cattle out of Dorrington, and then help them gather in the fall. And so that was and I did that for a good many years. Well, I did it for, I stayed in the cabin up there 17 out of 21 summers. And then I got a subdivision going at Sunrise Point, and that took up my time, and then I had cattle. My father and I had cattle down towards Oakdale and Sacramento, and and trucking them back and forth, and that and the subdivision, and before you know it, I got to be an old man. So it's about time to think about retiring pretty soon.
Yeah.
I went through just about a lifetime. 82 years, I'm not as good as I used to be. I had a cool calf yesterday, and I made it all right. I got the vet to come down, but he got there too late. But I had the calf. But I don't know, it's a good life. That's why I chose it, I guess.
How long you been in the cow business here?
I was thinking about a few days ago. I paid for my brand to use that brand, and it was in '35, I think, when we got the brand in Calaveras County. I told Jolly Snyder that one time it was 29, but that was the number of the brand, one of the numbers. But I think it was 35, and that's the first year I went to the mountains with cattle. Working for Perano Brothers, Louis and John.
Where did they go to the mountain? Where was their range?
They were on the Stanislaus from Avery up, and they went up as far as Gans.
That's some pretty tough country. Some of that.
Riverside, Ramses, and
You had a ranch out by Camp 9 somewhere, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you grow up there, or?
No, we bought that from Louis Mel Spina. Now, he had the last trails coming out of the mountains down the highway. Well, then, of course, people stopped at Reggie Osborne's, and they're stopping places about every 15 miles or so. But, and then Copper, and they stopped at Angels at Reggie Osborne's, right next to where he lived. And a lot of cattle on the roads in those days.
Yeah, man.
Two purchases of sheep when I was going to the mountains. They're all stopped now. It's all trucks.
I remember Howard Josie telling stories about he drove a herd of pigs. He had a mountain range over by Dardanelles somewhere. He took a herd of pigs up the mountains one time. Turkeys, and I guess everybody when they went to the mountains in those days, they just took the whole house with them. Mm-hmm. Everybody went.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you run your cattle around, close around here, or at the place there at Camp 9, or with your?
Well, we got the place at Camp 9 after I got out of the Army. Was discharged in '45, and then we bought that place in about about 47, I think. And then we had places around Angels and Bear Mountain, the Bear Mountain by Angels on that. There's a Bear Mountain Range by San Andreas. They call most of that country Bear Mountain.
Yeah, there's a lot of country there.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to talking about, I've talked to people at Hermit Valley, I guess not sightseers, but, well, anyway, the people that stopped on the road, and one fellow was Swiss, and he was remarking about, well, we were holding the cattle there before we turned them loose, and that was with Worcester McGladdy's cattle, but he was all enthused about the country. He says, just like Switzerland. And there were a lot of the people that took cattle to the mountains were Swiss and Italians and the French, but they were used to the mountains and taking the cattle, and they had dairy cows, and they raised hogs up there by Highland Lakes, milk ranch. Well, they call it milk ranch. And Worcester and Landy used that for the gathering pressure. But there was a great similarity from what the people that early day miners, when they got over here, when the mining played out, why they went to doing what they did in Switzerland and Italy, places like that. It was, and that's where they used a lot of bells in the Alps, you know. And this is the only country around here that I know that they have a lot of bells on their cattle, and they help out.
Oh yeah, I know. One story: a kid came to help Josie's in the mountains. He's from Nevada, and he says, "Oh, I don't know who'd ever put bells on a cow. I don't." You know, he says, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of." So after about 3 days of riding through the brush, you couldn't see 20 feet in front of you or anything. He finally heard a cowbell, and he was so excited he found a cow. He rode 3 days and hadn't found anything. He thought the cowbells were pretty good then.
Yeah. I tell you too, when we were gathering out of the cabin where I stayed in, it was from the old Gardner place, and Leo Valenti and I would go out. If we get in early in the afternoon, we'd take the pickup, and they had a little Ford pickup, Ford flatbed, but it was a couple of horses, nice. And we would go out late in the evening, or just about dark, and listen for bells. And you'd hear bells way off on the South Fork of McCalmay, and they hear the big bells, down in it. Black as ink, but you could hear, and you could even count the big bells. And then you hear the regular bell, and clank, 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 there'd be maybe 4 cows, and then all the time you'd be listening, you'd hear little bells. They were the yearlings, and the next day we would know how many cattle, at least, that should be there, because we heard those little bells and the medium-sized bells, and the dry cows were the heavy bells. But so I could see where that's why those guys went up there and put the bells on the town. Now back in Wyoming, and I don't know about them, but I never asked anybody, but I don't think they use bells.
It's a lot of open country, I think.
A lot of open country. They didn't need bells. But these people from Switzerland and Italy, and they knew what they had to find those cows.
This story of mine is a favorite to tell. The story you see is about the song of a bell. Not one in a church or a little town square. A sweeter true sound you'll not hear anywhere. For hundreds of years this bell has rung loud, playing its music from the neck of a cow. In the mountains and valleys you can still hear them sing, through summer and fall, beginning in spring. Their song can be carried sometimes on a breeze, or echoes down canyons past rocks, brush, and trees. Some bells have a high ring while others are low, singing in harmony wherever they go. Bells can tell stories about places they've went, by gouges and sap stains and the ways they've been bent. More than a tool for finding lost cows, they're medals of honor that they can wear proud. Each bell has different songs it can sing, depends what they're doing as to how they will ring. Feeding and trailing have two different tones, and the sound of a stampede will send fear through your bones. There's a first bell on a heifer full of beller and buck, or the clash against metal as they load on the truck. A single cow feeding a meadow high in the hills cuts through the silence and can give you the chills. Or a 100-cow orchestra performing a tale while moving in cadence up a rough mountain trail. These cowbells are music in the highest degree. Though some people don't like them, it's alright with me. I'll just keep on listening and marvel at how there could ever be such music from the neck of a cow.
Eloise Fisher. This is my son, Mark. Oldest.
Daddy.
You're from Valley Springs, right?
Well, nearby.
Near Valley Springs.
Actually, Paloma.
Yeah. I guess how long have you been in the cow business?
Well, counting the time when I was growing up on my dad's place all my life. And Mark has ever since he was born. And our whole family has most of the time, all the time they've been living here. Since, I guess the Fisher family came in about 1850s.
Yeah, it was right around there, yeah.
And my dad's family, the Hoover branch, came mining here about the turn of the century. My dad was born in 1909 up at Ridge Gulch above Moke Hill. And then, I don't know how old he was when he moved down there to the place where they live now. They called it Canadian Valley because I guess some Canadians had settled there to start with. It's about 5 miles out of San Andreas. And he lived there and grew up there and settled there after he got married and is still living there. Now he's 87.
Yeah, he had everything though. He had.
Yeah, he didn't just have cattle. He had goats, sheep, pigs, irrigated a little pasture, and made it all work.
That's the name of the game, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you take cows to the mountains too?
Yeah. We've gone since, well, the Fisher family went, I think, 1877.
Yeah,
and
that's
there
the
was
first year
another
they
major drought. They went up to on Forest Creek, and
Calaveras River dried up.
And they, one branch of the family purchased some property on Forest Creek, and then they went there ever since to the mountains. Ourselves personally, we went there up to the lower elevation mountains on like Forest Company land, and then in 1967 we took over a Forest Service permit up on Highway 4.
Well, tell them that was about when we got that, how long we've been there.
We've been there since 1967, and it was the original...
30 years?
Yeah. I think this will be the 31st season, but it's 30 years we've been going up there. And after we were there a couple years, the cow camp was right near Bear Valley and next to Blood's Meadow. And then they decided that they didn't want a cow camp in the area, so we had at our own expense. When they finally gave us a place that we could put it, we had to move the cabin and the barn and the corrals, and they're now located down on Bloods Creek, about 2 miles in on the road that goes to Spicer Reservoir. And we've been there since about 1970. So, and then they added another allotment across Highland Creek, and I'm not sure what year it was, but after we've been going for like 10 or 15 years up there.
I think that was part of that was Murphy's, and then part of that was
the new,
too,
yeah, the
Wheats.
Prather allotment was part of Murphy's. Whittles actually go on Wheats, but they divided it up. Part of the Bear Valley allotment was also part of Batatas, and it was the old Lombardi allotment when Lombardi's moved their operation to Oregon.
I guess Howard used to run all that country out there above, Mexican Gulch and all that country out there behind Sus Maria Creek. And your dad, you guys did out there behind.
Well, we called it, what did we call that now?
Government or
Yeah, it was BLM. It was a little Shenandoah. Yeah, there was a Shenandoah mine out in that country, yeah. My dad went there all the time I was growing up. It was a BLM ground. And then I don't know, I'm not sure exactly when he did give it up, but when I got married and left home, he was still taking a few cattle up there.
So I remember, we remember going out there and
then I
helping
think
get 'em
after
and-
Lynn and Doug got married, then I think they took some cattle there too
Yeah, a couple
for a while, and then,
years.
oh, I don't know. There was no fences, and the open range law changed, and they kept getting in people's places, and you got so many complaints and whatever, you couldn't keep them on the allotment or anything, and with more people coming into the area, it just got almost prohibitive to try to run them out there.
Well, at one, there was that one. I remember going to that one creek there. I can't remember. I don't know. I guess it's
I think
Shenandoah
it's
Creek.
Shenandoah Creek,
Salamander.
yeah, or Salamander Creek, that's
yeah.
it.
Gosh, I remember going there, and geez, we used to swim in there and everything. Grandpa showed us the hole where he'd swim and all that, and I remember how to get back there. At least I remember how to get back there, and so anyway, this one, I don't know where the heck where I was coming from. I was coming from over this, I don't know, I was going up North Branch there, and I had that old gray rusty pickup, and I'm going up the North Branch hill there, and here comes this Toyota kind of down the hill, just this side of Briskey's, just barely this side of Briskey's, and just going like devil, and for some reason I looked up in my rearview mirror as he went past me, and I seen him roll over the bank. Well, anyway, so I thought, well, should I keep on going and call the cops, or should I turn around and, see if I can help somebody, Well, anyway, so I turn around and I go down there. And beer cans everywhere, and two guys in the pickup there, and so anyway, they were both okay, I don't know why they weren't killed, but they rolled down there all the way to the creek, the pickup did. So anyway, one of them wanted to go up there to Mountain Ranch someplace I don't know why I give the guy a ride, but anyway, I give the guy a ride, and he's told me where to go, and by golly, if it wasn't down there at Shenandoah Creek there, so, and I could just, because I thought about, taking seeing what happened to the range, before that, just take some cattle out there, but by golly, I wouldn't. No way I'd do it now,
There's nothing but brush.
Nothing but brush out there, and all them yahoos camping there all the time, and it's
A lot of funny things happen now.
it's a mess out there, But I don't know. I remember going out there with Grandpa, and
oh yeah.
And, remember one time, I don't know, we weren't very big. I don't know, maybe 9, 10 or so, and we were helping Grandpa bring him back, and Grandma had to pick up with the hay yard or something there, and I remember it was one of the first times we'd seen a prolapsed uterus, Yeah, this cow there, we kept calling her Booger Butt.
Oh, I remember that now. Yeah, so.
But, we weren't a horseback then either. We were walking half the time and riding half the time in the back of the truck.
Yeah, remember the first horse you bought? You three kids together?
Yeah.
We had our good friend Bill Ellingwood used to help us up there in the mountains, and so he had this old horse. Probably she was about 24 years old, something like that. So he wanted $50 for her. So instead of Jack and I just buying the kids the horse, I went to the bank and they each withdrew $16. And they bought this old horse, and I kicked in too to make the $50. So I think they rode her that summer and whatever, and she kept running off. Tammy was only about 4 then, and every time you put her on the horse would want to run up to the barn to be with the other horses. So she hung on just as dear as anything, screaming all the way to the barn.
And she wouldn't ride the horse back. She'd have to get off. She'd walk back down to the house.
Yeah, and then we wanted to
wouldn't
get
have
on
no more to do with it that day. Next day,
same
try
thing,
again.
all over again. So they rode this horse all that summer and whatever, and by golly, that winter, poor horse got sick and went up in the field and laid down and died. So that was their first horse purchase.
We got our use out of her though. I mean, we all.
Oh,
Got
yeah.
your $16 a piece.
It was fun. I think they got $16 a piece of good out of her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, see, then that was I took that horse there on that. Well, when we helped Bill drive from over there across the river back over to his place.
Yes, you did.
And I remember seeing.
Well, we drove our
into,
cattle from the Gann Ranch.
Oh,
the first year we went to the mountains, we drove our cattle from the Gann
Yeah.
Ranch over across the Calaveras River, and we drove them up through Ellingwood's place and crossed the river up there just below the bridge there at San Andreas, where you go into San Andreas. And Mark rode the horse. That was his first big cattle drive, and I don't know, it was 1967, I guess, and you were, what, 8?
No, well, I was...
You were going to be 8.
I was going to be 8.
Yeah, you weren't 8 yet. You were 7 years old.
But anyway,
so.
when we got over there on this upper end of the dam there, I think Howard had the dam rented, and he was running a bunch of Holstein steers in there, I think.
And they were gathering the Holstein steers.
The Holstein steers, and we were driving. I don't know how many cows we had. We had a bunch of cattle, though.
Well, we had a lot of cattle down there.
I can't remember who all was with us, but
Dick Fisher and
Dick and Bill and Dad and I don't know.
You and me.
Bill Ellingwood. I mean, I don't know about Bill Fisher. I don't know.
No, not Bill Fisher. Just Dick
I don't know
Fisher.
About Mike or...
And here's Rebecca.
Leroy, I think. I think Leroy was Leroy.
Yeah, Leroy was with us and Dick, I think, and then us.
Yeah.
For sure.
But anyway, we got.
We're talking.
They were gathering them up. I remember Howard had a great big gunny sack full of beer.
Yeah.
Full of beer. Hotter, you know, it was a hot day, you know.
But they gave up.
Sack full of beer. Yeah, they were.
I always said, it seemed like every gulch we'd come around there, here was a bunch of Holstein steers coming down like heck off the mountain, whatever. And then they'd pass us, and then we'd just keep going along because we had cows and calves, and they didn't travel as fast as those steers. And then pretty soon we'd catch up to them, and then they'd come down from another gulch with a bunch of steers. And then it got so hot, and the steers, I guess, all scattered because they gave up and went home. They said, we've had enough for today.
I remember seeing the dust clouds and the black and whites and the tails in the air. And
it was quite a day.
Something else. That was the... But yeah, well, it was an all-day trip, you know. I remember we left real early in the morning.
Well after lunch when we got up there finally to cross the river, because we had to come up the river further than we had anticipated, because I guess the dam was too high and river was too high, so we had to come up almost to the bridge there before we could cross the cattle across the river. And then I think we had to rope a calf, didn't we? Didn't a calf almost go under? Seemed like we had to rope a calf and pull him out of the water because he was going to go down the tubes or something.
I don't remember
I think so. I think so. And so then we had lunch there, and then we drove them on up to Ellingwood's Corral, and then we loaded them out of there and went to the mountains. So that was that experience. Gosh, I haven't thought about that for years.
Then we drove them down one year. It was a couple of years after that we drove them down.
When Tammy was 9.
Tammy was 9, yeah, so that was like...
We drove them down the back way, and they weren't used to being driven, and it was a warm fall, and the cattle didn't want to go, and we didn't make our camping spot. And then, so we started in again the next morning and got to our camping spot, and we'd put up just kind of a wire field there. And there was a couple of campers camped right in the middle of the field when we turned the cattle in there. So we said, well, you're going to have company for a while. And so then we drove them down to Markwoods, and we were going to truck them home from Markwoods, and we had our own truck. Darn if the truck didn't break down, so we were hauling hay to them for about 2 weeks while we were getting the truck fixed. So we didn't do that anymore. We decided to go for the trucking business.
Yeah. Well, we hired it then too.
Yeah. It's you know, to go the way they used to drive them. There's no more stopping places. There's no watering places. You know, there's no place to stop with the cattle at all. And there's all the traffic and all the everything. I suppose you could, if you could, talk them into...
to get out of the way.
Yeah, you know, and it's just not set up for it anymore, and it's just too much trouble. So
I don't know what a person would have to do now to.
I
probably get it done. But,
we drove those ones up from Calaveras up to railroad, but I mean, still.
If it's like a day's travel, but it take you to go clear to the high country. It takes a couple, 3 days. You know, cow doesn't travel too fast.
We did it 2 days. It's about 20 miles, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
calves are sore-footed by the time we got there.
You know, it takes a lot out of them. It's probably easier on the cattle to truck them, but it is more expensive, I guess. Maybe by the time you fed all the crew and everything, you'd end up with almost the same sort of thing, but it's faster. Everything's fast now, so.
Well, if you could get it, I don't know, I still think you could make a little money if you could, you know, charge some of them guys to come with you.
Oh yeah, we've thought of that too. When the cattle business gets a little bit down like it is, you start thinking of some little alternatives maybe that you can get into, but
yeah, there's a lot of people that, you know, they'd die to go on something like that. I mean,
I'm sure if you did it right, you could probably make it work, but there's so many other things drawing your attention that it's hard to change course, you know, and go a different direction, because there are so many things that are vying for your attention, not only in the cattle business, but in the whole arena of private property and everything else that, you know.
Tell them about your 10th anniversary up there in the mountains there.
You mean the 25th?
No, the 10th. The 10th one. Wasn't that where the
that's when we went
pie and all that?
Well, yeah, it so happened it was our 10th anniversary, and we hadn't gone on the Prather allotment yet. It hadn't been put on our allotment, but some of the cattle got over there. So Jack and I and our friend John Strait headed over there to bring them back. It just so happened it was our 10th anniversary. It wasn't planned that way. It was August 24th. So we went over there, and there wasn't any trails that we knew of then, because we weren't familiar with that country. So we went clear up the top of the Whitaker Dardanelles and went through some rough country and whatever, and our friend's horse almost fell down, and he was carrying an axe over his shoulder, and I was afraid he was going to cut his ears off or something. And so we ended up, finally we got over there that evening, and it was to the old post corral, and there was an old cabin there and stove, so we cooked ourselves some dinner and laid out our bedrolls outside and whatever, and that's how we spent our 10th anniversary. It wasn't exactly a deluxe motel, but it was fun. So then the next day we went and rounded up the cattle where they were straying, where they weren't supposed to, and drove them back, and I think we found a little better trail to get back there. Now we drive the cattle over there. It's on our allotment, and we've got a pretty good little trail picked out. Some people don't think it's too good. A couple years ago, a friend of ours was helping us, and it's the first time he'd been up there, and he says, "You call this a trail? I can't even see anything here."
Who's that?
Don McFall.
Oh.
Yeah, he was just mystified that we knew where we were going, because a lot of places, you know, you try not to mark the trail too much, because then too many people get using it, and then they take motorbikes over it and whatever, and it just messes it up, and they're not supposed to be in that back country, and so the cattle learn pretty much where to go, and you do too. I found out this last summer I knew my way around the mountains by myself better than I thought I knew. I impressed a couple people when we went way up into this high country, and we didn't go there very often, not always every year, because a lot of times the cattle didn't get up there if we didn't put them up there. It's way up across Wilderness Creek. So we decided that maybe we better go look and see if some cattle were up there. And I said, well, to Matt, I said, I think I can find my way up there. And sure enough, we did. We even found this other little place called Little Indian Valley, and that's really tricky, that one. And so Sam Reed says, well, I'm impressed. I think you know where you're going up here. And I said, well, I kind of surprised myself.
Well, do you remember the first time we went up there, you know, we didn't really know the trail too well, you know, and I don't know if Dad had been up there before, or, well, I know when he was riding around the range up there before we got it with Curly, they were up there on top of Bull Run someplace, and Dad asked him what was down there, and Curly said, oh, just a bunch of timber, you know, there's nothing down there. Well, Curly'd never been there, you know.
So he'd never been there either.
And so Dad never went there until, I don't know, what, he followed a cow up there or something?
I guess, something.
I don't know what happened, but he
remember the time
knew there was a meadow up there. Somehow he found out there was a meadow up there, you know. And
I think Bill Rolla told him too.
Yeah, and so, well, I don't know, we had about 40 cows we were driving up there. Or I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a heck of a time. We finally got them up there, but I mean, it was...
It's all rocks, down
you know,
timber,
down
you know,
timber
and
rocks.
hard places to cross creeks, and it's just hard. And then you get off the beaten path, and then you kind of lose your way. I mean, you know where you're going, but you can't get through always. You can't always get through.
But you can't always get through. And,
So.
Oh man, it was a hot, dusty day, and the cattle, they kept wanting to turn back, and we finally got them up there though. And then that was the time when we were coming back. Was that the time we were coming back out of there way late?
And I went off the horse. Went to get on the horse, and the saddle slid over.
Yeah. Or I thought, well, you went off on the other side. You went off, and somebody was helping you on or something.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had some experiences.
Old Red, he wanted to go home. And
staying out after dark is not the best thing to do up there, but we did it. We managed to find our ways. And
but I mean, it
well,
was...
tell about the trip you and Dad and Matt took up there when...
oh, yeah.
When Dad was sure he heard the bell.
Up to Little Indian Valley.
Yeah, so...
It was in November, you know, and it was...
late in the fall.
Late in the fall, you know. I don't know how many cattle we were out.
Not very many.
You know, and I don't know why we got going over there, why we thought this cow, there was a cow over there, or some cattle over there, or whatever. But anyway, we unloaded there at Mud Lakes and rode back on the trail there going to Gabbets, you know. And we were riding along there, and I don't know if earlier, there's another place over there called the Olive Patch, and it's just a little run there on the side of the ridge there someplace, and I don't know if he'd already checked that, or if he followed, I think he maybe followed a track and never, I think he,
that could have been it.
A couple days before or something, he followed a track down through that country, and he never did find the cow. And, but anyway, it was in November, you know, cold wind blowing, I mean, you couldn't hear nothing, you know, and we turned off the Gabbets Trail going up to that Little Indian Valley, and we hadn't gone too far, you know, and it wasn't really a trail there, you know, the way we were going. And Dad says, hear a bell, you know, and Matt and I said, yeah, you're full of baloney, you know, there's no, you can't hear nothing, you know. Oh, there's a cow, there's a bell up there, there's a bell up there, I heard it, you know. So we'd keep going, you know, and then we'd stop and listen again, you know, nothing. It took us about 2 hours to get up there to this little meadow, you know. We get up there to that little meadow, you know, and Matt and I were cold, you know, wind's blowing, you know, there was no sign on the ground, you know, nothing there, you know. And we get up there, and here's this cow with a baby calf, and she got her bell on all right, you know, but she goes to ring it. There wasn't a clapper in that thing. That thing couldn't have made a sound unless she just
hit it on a rock or something.
And even if she did that, it was still so windy, no way you could hear it.
But anyway, the
cow was up there, and she was kind of wild too. But we got her. The calf stayed right with her, and
she knew the way out of there.
She knew the way out of there. I mean, it was a good trail.
It didn't take them any time at all.
You know, it took us about 20 minutes to get from there down to the Gabbets Trail. Yeah, you know, of course it was all downhill too, you know, and she was going at a trot. But I mean, she picked the way, and it was easy. You know, we didn't have to get off and lead them. We didn't have to cut any brush. Yeah, it was unbelievable. You know, I don't know why we couldn't have picked up that trail on the way up there, but we didn't.
What?
So that's the tales of the mountains.
Yeah.
Station.
No way that she heard that bell. I don't know. He just must have known that cow was there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the way it happens sometimes. You just get lucky. Be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Nothing's here forever, only the land. And, I don't know. We take care of it and have been for a lot of years, but now they think they can change all that.
Do a better job than the people who live here all their life.
All their life.
Made a living off it all their life.
Yeah. I don't like here. There's been cattle here for they've been here since they've owned the place ever since 1865. So that's, what, 130 some odd years there's been cattle here, and we had to take care of it or we wouldn't be here. We still wouldn't be running it. We hadn't taken care of it all them years, one generation to the next. But they seem to think it's just to look at. We've never done anything with it but harm it. I know it's just different times. But we'll keep going. They're not going to get the best of us. We'll be here.
they'll go away. They'll find another cause.
Yeah, there'll be something else for them to holler about, so they'll move on to it. Here's just a little different. It's, well, you can see, I don't know if you can see it yet tonight, but our range is that mountain right over here due west of us where we're standing talking now. And I mean, that's part of the country we run in. We go up over that mountain and stuff, and we run a lot of feeders on this side and the cows and calves on the other side. And I mean, you turn them out and it's a big country and a lot of brush and rocks, and there's some places, sometimes, I mean, you won't see them for 6 months. I know one time we had some Bremer bulls in here, and there was 2 of them, and we turned them out with the cows, and we never seen them till we went together that spring. We had a hell of a time finding them, and after we found them, we didn't want to find them. They come looking for us then. They weren't too happy, but yeah, it's a lot different than the valley or like around Farmington or Cathay Valley in that open country. This country, you just can't, you don't see everything for weeks. Like I said, sometimes 3 months, 4 months, maybe 5 months. But you usually get everything back, and there's a lot of riding and poking around in the brush and the sticks, the rocks. Wait for them at the water.
I know a lot of people kid, they call us poison oakers, but I tell them how much challenge is there to gathering cows in a flat square field that's fenced on 4 sides.
Yeah, right. So, one thing too, I mean, it's tough all over when it don't rain like it has, but this kind of in this brush country, you know, it's not the best, but like a year like this, it's tough. There's not much grass, but they got a little brush, and you got the right cattle, they'll, you know, survive. They'll get by. They're not going to really get fat. In the spring they will, but they'll make it through the summer. And that's the whole name of the game. It's survival, and that's it's just a little tougher country to run in. It isn't for everybody, I'll tell you that. I mean, we had a guy from Oregon down here one year, came down, and that's what he came down 1 year. He didn't come back no more. Besides his fancy horses not being able to make it through the rocks and stuff, he got the poison oak, and boy, he laid at the motel in the Black Bart for a week. So he couldn't, boy, he was bad shape. The poison oak got him. But I mean, it's just one of them things you've got to put up with. Poison oak and rattlesnakes, I guess.
Or something about you and Dick Fisher were working for Carl Lordo, and somebody knocked a lantern over or something.
Yeah, that's quite a deal. Dick and I was kids up there working for Carl. We was putting up fences for him. Carl came up and he brought us a bunch of groceries. He brought a bunch of stuff for him because he was going to stay the summer. And he said, "You guys be all right here, won't you, for a while? I'm going back down below for a week or so." And he said, "Oh, yeah, we'll be all right. But we're not staying in this cabin. It's too damn cold." And it was a cold cabin. Mama. So we just moved Dick and I had moved everything over into the barn. They had a nice barn. So we were sleeping in the hayloft of the barn. We moved all our clothes and everything over in the barn. So we come in one night, been building fence, and I said, "I'll cut the kindling, Dick, if you get the lanterns ready." Fill the lanterns up. So Dick filled the lantern up, and got it going. He hung it up, and he hollers out to me. I was splitting wood, and he hollered out to me. He says, he said, "That lantern went out." And I said, "Well, probably out of fuel or something." So I says, "Fill it up." So unbeknownst to me, I mean, I've probably done the same thing. Kids, I was about 14 years old. He puts the hot lantern on the table and he goes to fill it up. Pretty soon I hear woo woo. I turn around, the whole cabin's afire. I mean, looked like a bomb went off. Dick, he comes running out of the cabin. He's all afire, and I tackle him and roll him around in the dirt and the rocks. There was a creek down there, and he's trying to get to the creek. And so I tackled him and I rolled him around. All there is up there, there was rocks about that big around. I was beating hell out of him with them rocks, trying to put the fire out. So anyhow, we got the fire out and we turned around. There's nothing left. That cabin was a fire. I mean, it was a big barbecue. So, boy, well, we didn't come out too bad. All we each lost was a cowboy hat. Straw cowboy hat. We had all our clothes in the barn and everything, so we stayed in the barn. I can remember this yet. All we had to eat the next morning, I'll never forget that. We had watermelon and carrots. That's all we had in the cooler outside in the creek. We all was raised right here and went to school here and everything, and everybody, not all of them are as lucky as us and can work full time on the ranch, but they've all got cattle and sheep, and you know, they're all raised with agriculture, and they know what it is to take care of something and work your butt off and not get much, but the satisfaction of raising something and see what it is. Go on. The daughter, she's into it. She's got some cattle of her own. Son-in-law, they've got a couple places rented down here, and they raise cattle. So they must like it, or they wouldn't have done it. So, yeah, it's, you know, there's been cows in Calaveras County a long, long time. I'll say that. It probably cows and, well, it's been all agriculture until just recently, you know, it's cattle and mining and logging. Now they're getting more, I guess they're getting more grapes. Calaveras County's getting more grapes all the time. And
big money.
so, I don't know how many of there's a few of the old-time families, I guess, put in some vineyards this year. I heard putting in some ground. I hope it works.
Yeah.
But that's all right. I'd rather see vineyards than houses. But they tell me on this barn here, they put it together, they had all the timbers cut and everything, and they put it up in like, I don't know, 10, 12 days. And my wife's great uncle, I know he was probably 15 years old or something when they built it. He was born in 88. So, and he remembers working on it. And there was an, Hertzig was the one that helped him hew the timbers and frame it all out and everything. They was the ones that did it, was Hertzig. That's another old family here. It'd be, I don't know if it was John's great-grandfather or great-uncle or what. They was here in San Andres, and he built a lot of barns and construction and stuff. And it's all, you know, it's all hand-hewn timbers and mortise together. And it's in pretty good shape. We've kept it up pretty good. Now, I don't know, it's got a tin roof on it now, and we put another one on it. But I don't know if, when originally it had a tin roof or it was just I would imagine it was shakes, because, and then maybe they put tin on it later. But that was the main thing. If you can keep a good roof on them, they'll last forever. And like these timbers in here, they must be, you know, they're going on to probably 90, 95 years old. I mean, a lot of it's older than that, because you can look in there and you can see where they were, it was used timbers in them days. They were mortised out, and it was for something else. I don't know whether they'd pulled it out of a mine or another barn or hotel, who knows. But I mean, it's a good barn, still is. It's a lot better, I think, than any they build today, you know. It's just sitting on rock foundation. So, but it's, if it could talk, it could probably tell a lot of stories, what went on here over the period of time. It's seen a lot. I don't know how big this tree was, this oak tree that's here in the corral. It's a pretty good sized tree. You know, when this was all put together here so, you know, we gotta try to preserve everything, keep it like it is. It's, you know, you don't want to see everything tore down or fell down, and it's been here for a long time, so we just try to keep everything as it is and use it. It's used every day. We store hay in it. We was talking about the rancher's image. Everybody, all they do, they wear a big cowboy hat and drive around in a four-wheel drive truck. Well, everybody has a four-wheel drive truck, but it's not a status symbol or anything. We work them, but like I was telling Bob last night, I said the four-wheel drive truck to the rancher is like the automatic rifle was to the Indian. It was a ruination of them. You lost respect. It was all reality. Everything's four-wheel drive and a lot better now. As with the Indians. They could hunt pretty good until they got the rifles, and then automatic rifle, and then it was, oh, just throw the lead out there, they'll run into it. So. How they must have sled them in with mules on a sled or something. I don't know. There's some big rocks in there. I know that. And how they got them in place, I do not know. So. But really, they're still in pretty good shape. We got to rebuild. I haven't picked that up yet, but we got to rebuild that over there yet. But if it could talk to us, I guess it would tell us. But it's something I think that should be preserved. I know the wife's great uncle, he was pretty good at putting them back together. Colombo, Onito, I worked with him on some of them. And my father-in-law was good at it, Gerard Onito, he's real good at putting them back together. The way I understood it, they got burnt out here twice. And after the second time, and they had been burnt out in Sonora, they was in Sonora and they got burnt out there too. So the old man says, well, we're not going to get burnt out anymore. This was Giovanni Onito. And he said, we're going to build a house out of rock. And I think they got burnt out in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. And they said they started gathering rock. And that house was completed by Thanksgiving. They was moved into it. And the walls are 4 foot thick. And it's all rock. All the kids worked on it, I guess. And they had a rock mason laying. And they didn't have any cement, so they ordered cement out of Germany. I think it came from Germany. And it was taking so long, and right over there, well, there's a power pole over there now, they quarried it out, and they cooked there, made their own cement right there. So they cooked there, made their own cement right there. So them old timers, they had it together. If they couldn't get it, they made it. So that was pretty impressive to me. Well, we don't have any cement. It's taking too long to come here, so we'll just go make some. And they cooked their own lime, made their own cement, and then the cement came. I think the barrel that came around the horn's still down there in the basement where they got the cement from after. But I guess the house was built by then.
Cherished memories on the wall of family and friends of the past. A constant reminder day after day that the life that we're living won't last. They've all of them gone to a better place where finally they'll get much needed rest and watch over us and have a good laugh as life puts us through the test. They did their best with what they had, though sometimes there wasn't enough. But on they went, making their way, no matter how times got to be tough. They all had one thing in common, a willingness to work and survive. And that, in a nutshell, I guess you could say, is what caused this country to thrive. Although they're not here in body, their lessons and wisdom live on. And as long as we teach about times of the past, our loved ones will never be gone. It's important to teach to your children the things contained in your mind, because an attitude about life and a little common sense are the most important things we leave behind.